This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1085 of Horse Tip Daily, your almost everyday morsel of helpful hints and useful facts for horse folks. Brought to you today by Bimeda Equine. Greetings, horse folks. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is Dr. Ellefson from Bimeda Equine talking with Glenn the Geek about fecal testing, what it tells you and what it doesn't.
Well, I'm back here with Dr. Ellefson, and we are talking about deworming. He is the Director of Technical Services at Bimeda Incorporated. Dr. Ellefson, today we're going to talk about fecal testing and some of the lesser-known equine parasites. We touched on fecal testing last month, and I want to get into more detail about that this month. So fecal testing is really a multi-part process, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And, as helpful as fecal testing is, and it really is helpful in telling us about most of the major parasites, it's not going to tell us about all of them. For instance, if a horse has bots, which is nothing more than an intermediate form of a fly, which does not lay an egg, so you're not going to see anything in a fecal test that would indicate those. Pinworms, on the other hand, deposit their eggs on the skin of the horse near the tail. So we're not going to pick up pinworm eggs on a fecal test, and of course, tapeworm eggs are very difficult to pick up on fecal testing. Less than 3% are going to be picked up in a fecal test. So there are still some parasites we need to be concerned about, even if our parasite profile, if you will, looks okay from our fecal test.
And I know summer sores is one, too, because we have a horse right here and have a big problem with that in Florida. It's something we see all the time is summer sores. Explain the summer sore. Other than I think they're just gross, but you can explain.
Well, they really are a lot of granulation tissue usually. And what causes that is that's two different lesser-known worms called Drossia and Habernema, which are stomach worms, and their eggs will hatch, and the larvae will be spread by flies that are feeding on a sore. Typically, those flies are going to feed around the mouth and nostrils of the horse, and that's how the life cycle is completed. But occasionally, if those flies are feeding on a fresh cut or on a sore, the larvae will be left off, if you will, or deposited, and then they'll crawl into that sore. And now we've got live larvae living in that sore, and that's why it has a tendency to not want to heal, and we get a lot of granulation tissue. So, and ivermectin is actually has the superior label claim for treating summer sores. It's very effective in killing those larvae.
I was going to ask you that. So ivermectin is the one for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So a product like ivermectin or Equimax would be very helpful, both for bots and for summer sores.
Now, as far getting back to the fecal testing, so you do the fecal test. Does that, when that comes back, will that tell me what dewormer I should be using? Because we've already talked about the different classes of dewormers. Will it actually tell me, or will my vet tell me that, okay, you've got this problem, this problem, this problem, and this is what you should use, and you should use it this often or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, the fecal test is going to give you a place to start. But, as we've discussed previously, with resistance issues that are out there, and, an important thing for your listeners to remember is that resistance against dewormers by parasites is not a regional situation. It's not a geographic situation. It's usually a farm or ranch situation based on what products have been used previously on that place. And like we talked about before, we can do fecal egg count reduction testing at the time that we deworm, and then repeat it 2 weeks later, and look for that 90% reduction in parasite load. And if we see that, then we're okay. We can continue using that active product. If we don't see 90% or greater reduction, then we need to switch to a different active ingredient group.
Do we ever get to 100%?
Sure, yeah. For instance, Equimax has a label claim for 100% control of tapeworms in horses. So, yes, there are some of the parasites that we are 100% effective in.
Okay. That's terrific to know. And, of course, you can find out about all the different products that Bimeda has, and you go to their website, bimedaequine.com. That's Bimeda, equine.com. Equimax, Bimectin, Exodus Multidose, Equil, just a whole bunch of different ones on there. And the nice part about this website is you can go on there and you can find out what all of them are for. There's also a ton of information on deworming plans, fecal testing, a lot more about fecal testing than we had time to talk about today, resistance, and then all the different kinds of parasites that you can find as well, some of which we just touched on. So go to bimedaequine.com and be sure to check out the Did You Know by Dr. Dave section, because Dr. Dave here answers all kinds of questions on that subject, a little more detail than we can get into here. That's at bimedaequine.com.
Well, there you have it. You can find links to today's guests at horsetipdaily.com. And don't forget, you can have every one of your favorite Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go by downloading the free Horse Radio Network app for your iPhone or Android. Just go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. It's quick, it's free, and it's easy. Or you can subscribe via iTunes. This podcast was made possible through the generous support of Bimeda Equine and listeners like you. Learn how you can help support Horse Radio Network programming and qualify for auditors-only perks by going to horsetipdaily.com and clicking on the Become an Auditor banner in the center of the page. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.